I am Zoe, now 24 years old. But this story starts when I was just 12. Back then, I lived in a family that wasn't too wealthy, but we didn't lack for anything either. My family had enough to live comfortably. Not luxurious, but enough to not worry about money on a daily basis. My dad, Jack, was a hardworking man, always engaged in jobs that were never stable. My mom, Margaret, was a strong woman who managed everything at home. Life seemed calm, but there was always something that made me feel like I was a small part of that family picture. Although I wasn't a bad kid or doing anything terribly wrong, every time I saw how much attention my parents gave to my younger sister, Lucy, I felt forgotten. Lucy was the golden child, the perfect daughter that everyone praised. Her teachers always regarded her as outstanding, and every accomplishment came so easily to her. And my parents? They couldn't stop bragging about Lucy. They flaunted her like she was a gift from heaven, while I was just Zoe, the ordinary daughter. Nothing special. Every time my dad told everyone about Lucy's accomplishments, about the beautiful paintings she made or the songs she sang, everything seemed perfect. As for me, a little praise like "Zoe did pretty well" was all I got. I didn't blame Lucy. She was just a kid, doing what she was supposed to do. But the invisible comparison between us made me feel like I was the shadow of this family. One afternoon, as I sat on the old sofa in the living room, gazing out the window at the garden, Mom called me downstairs. This time, her voice wasn't as friendly as usual. Something felt off. She told me to come to the living room, and I knew something was wrong. When I walked in, both Mom and Dad were sitting quietly on the sofa. Mom looked at me with a worried expression, but I didn't feel the warmth I usually did. "Zoe, we need to talk," Mom said, her voice trying to sound calm, but I could feel the tension in the air. "What is it, Mom?" I asked, anxiety rising in my chest. Dad looked at me, his eyes no longer filled with the familiar care. "We're facing financial difficulties, Zoe, and we can't afford to take care of you anymore," he said, his voice dry like a final declaration. I froze, unable to comprehend what I had just heard. "What? What do you mean?" I couldn't believe my ears. It felt like the world was falling apart in front of me. How could they say that? How could a 12-year-old like me be treated this way? Mom continued, but her words became a blur in my mind. "We've decided to send you to a foster home. Everything will be fine, Zoe." "It's just temporary," Mom said. But the word temporary felt like a thorn in my heart, making the pain sharper. My voice caught in my throat. "Why not Lucy? Why me?" I was stunned. "Lucy needs stability, Zoe. Your sister can't live in these conditions," Mom replied, her tone cold and heartbreaking. I felt like I had been completely abandoned. Not just neglected, but abandoned. As if it was all premeditated. How could I even understand what my parents had just said? They hadn't just left me, they were telling me that I was a burden they couldn't continue to carry. Dad's words were like nails hammered into my head, unshakable. After that day, I wasn't the Zoe I used to be. What happened was such a shock that I lost my way. While everything continued around me, I felt like I had been left behind, no longer a part of this family. When my parents dropped me off at the foster home, I didn't know what to do except sit quietly in the car. My heart filled with sadness and confusion. The foster home was not big, but it was cozy enough. My foster mom, Mrs. Miller, was gentle and always tried to make me feel comfortable. She made warm breakfasts, and the smell of pancakes was more comforting than I had ever imagined. But no matter what, I couldn't get used to this place. I couldn't accept living away from my family, especially after discovering that I had been left here because of financial reasons, while Lucy stayed with my parents. The days that followed passed slowly. The feeling of abandonment grew stronger, painful, and unhealable. I tried not to think too much about it, but it was hard. Every time I saw pictures of my old family on my phone, with Lucy always in the pictures of their travels with my parents, I felt like a ghost. Why did they treat me this way? Why not Lucy? In the early days at the foster home, I always felt out of place. Even though the Miller family tried hard to make me feel comfortable, I couldn't fully trust them. Mrs. Miller always wore a friendly smile, made warm breakfasts, and tried to create a family-like atmosphere. Mr. Miller would sometimes come into my room, talking about books he loved, but I couldn't open up. They were too different from my parents. The people I had loved and trusted unconditionally. No matter how kind Mrs. Miller was, I still couldn't forget the feeling of being abandoned, of being replaced. I still held on to the belief that everything was just temporary. My parents would come back. They were just gone for a little while, and then I would be back with my family. I kept imagining that after a few days they would call me, tell me everything was fine and I would be back home. But day after day, no call, no message. In the early days here, I spent most of my time thinking about my family, reminiscing about old moments. I remember every morning my dad would make coffee and place a cup beside me, while my mom would prepare breakfast with her silent love. I also remember the evenings when the whole family would gather together, chatting about the day, sharing laughs. But now, all of that is nothing but distant, fading memories. Slowly, what I had hoped for began to feel more and more out of reach. I started wondering whether my parents would truly come back. They had left me behind, and while part of me still held on to hope, I knew that hope was gradually fading. Sitting alone in the living room, my tired eyes staring at the empty wall in front of me, I realized they hadn't called. No messages, no phone calls. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't keep the belief that they would return. Everything seemed too quiet, too cold. Mrs. Miller entered the room and sat beside me. "Zoey, are you okay?" she asked, her voice gentle yet full of concern. I didn't want to show my emotions, but she could see just how exhausted I looked. "I'm fine," I answered, forcing a smile, but that smile couldn't hide the sorrow in my heart. Mrs. Miller watched me for a moment before speaking again. "You know, sometimes life doesn't go the way we plan, but you're here not because you did anything wrong. You don't deserve what happened." Her words choked me up. I knew she meant well, but her words only made me realize that things would never go back to the way they were. I couldn't go back home, and maybe my parents would never come for me. Though I gradually adapted to life here, there were still moments when I missed home so much it hurt. I often thought about my parents, about the old family. I missed the days when I felt like I was part of the family, when I mattered. I couldn't forget the feeling of being left behind, forgotten. However, a part of me knew that no matter how many days passed, I couldn't keep living in the past. I had to learn to accept and move on. After all, life must go on, right? One morning, while I was sitting in the Miller's dining room, Mrs. Miller looked at me with a gentle gaze. "Zoey, if you want, you can call your parents. I don't want you to feel cut off from everything," she said, her voice soft but full of understanding. I felt a little emotional hearing her say that, but I couldn't call them. Maybe my parents needed me, but I couldn't keep living with the hopeless expectation that they would return. I didn't need to chase the past or wait for a call that I didn't know would ever come. I got involved in school activities, finding joy in the little things like helping my classmates or simply joining the debate club, where I could immerse myself in conversations full of logic without worrying about things beyond my control. I was no longer the Zoey of before, the lonely girl always waiting for her parents to return. Now, every day, I felt the change in how I viewed the world. As summer approached, I began to receive new opportunities. A part-time job at a bookstore taught me not only how to earn money, but also how to manage my life and personal finances. Small but steady steps. One afternoon, while I was tidying up at the bookstore counter, my phone rang. It was a text from an unknown number. I opened it and it was a simple message from my mom. "We should talk. Can you call me?" But I didn't reply right away. Instead, I put the phone down, gazing out the window where the last rays of sunlight drifted by. Inside me, there was no more waiting or longing. That feeling had faded with every day I moved forward. I stood up, walked toward the door, and continued with my work. One weekend, as I sat alone in my room at the Miller house, I suddenly remembered that I hadn't checked my social media in a while. I wasn't the type to post often, but in moments of free time, I would open my phone and scroll through old posts. That day, I couldn't explain why I did it. Maybe it was because I wanted to forget the emptiness. Or maybe I just thought I needed some connection to the outside world. But then, I realized something I never wanted to see. A new post appeared on my dad's profile. The whole family was standing on a beach, golden sunlight, the ocean cool and blue. They were all smiling, as if everything was fine. Lucy stood in the center, her face beaming, like a testament to a perfect family. I couldn't take my eyes off the picture. Even though I wasn't in it, I knew they were living a life that I was no longer a part of. The caption beneath the photo hit me like a dagger. "Dream life, we've finally found peace." Peace? I couldn't understand. How could they talk about peace when they had abandoned me? How could they live a dream life while leaving me in the dark? Reading those words, I couldn't hold back the anger rising inside me. Every photo they posted, every comment they made, all reminded me that I had been cast out of their life. The feeling of abandonment, of being forgotten, surged within me. But it wasn't just pain. It was anger that couldn't be soothed. I couldn't understand how they could live like that, without contacting me, without a word of concern. They were traveling, living their perfect life without me by their side. How could they treat me this way? I scrolled through more photos. A trip to a luxury resort, a lavish dinner under candlelight, smiles everywhere. But with each photo, I felt more lost than ever. I had once been a part of their life. I had once been someone they loved and cared for. But now, I was nothing but a memory, a ghost they had forgotten. My heart was boiling, but all I could do was stare at the screen. The anger and disappointment impossible to extinguish. I couldn't understand them anymore. How could they smile, be happy, while I was struggling with this pain? How could they abandon me and leave me to face everything on my own? A moment later, as my head was spinning, I realized that I needed to do something to break free from this feeling. I couldn't just sit here, staring at their perfect life while all I could feel was pain. I had to stand up. I had to do something to regain control over my life. With a single tap, I deleted all those photos, erased all the messages, the captions I didn't want to see anymore. I didn't need to look at their life. They had chosen to live that way, and I was going to choose to live for myself. I reopened my social media page and posted a simple status. I've learned to live without anyone's approval, and I will continue my journey. After I severed all ties with the past, life at the Millers gradually became an integral part of my journey. Though at first I kept my distance, unable to fully open up, the sincerity of the Miller family gradually changed me. They never forced me to forget the past, but they were always there for me, ready to help when I needed it. Mrs. Miller continued to be the caregiver, always looking out for me with every meal, every restful night. Mr. Miller, though not always the easiest to share his emotions, always had short yet encouraging words when I needed support. His gentle guidance in tough times, teaching me the value of hard work and patience, made me realize I was no longer alone. Each morning, when I woke up and saw Mrs. Miller preparing breakfast, I felt a part of my heart healing. Not because of the food she cooked, but because of the care she showed. I knew that, even though she wasn't my biological mother, she treated me like I was her own daughter. Gradually, I opened up more to the Miller family. In the evenings, we would often sit together in the living room, watching TV, or simply chatting about the day. While at times I still felt out of place, their warmth and kindness gradually made me feel more at ease. They didn't just stop at taking care of me materially, but they also helped me grow as a person. Mr. Miller encouraged me to get involved in school activities, starting with the debate club. At first, I only did it because he suggested it, but gradually I realized I really enjoyed it. I began to find joy in debating, in using my reasoning to persuade others. And from there, I started to realize that I could be stronger than I thought. Mrs. Miller also encouraged me to focus more on my studies, constantly reminding me that nothing could stop me from moving forward if I tried hard enough. I began to see progress in my academics, from low test scores to steadily higher grades over time. They never asked me to be perfect, but they always made me feel like I was valuable, that I deserved love and respect. With the support of the Miller family, I not only focused on my studies, but also started looking for a part-time job to become financially independent. This didn't just help me feel more confident, but it also taught me how to manage money and responsibility. Every month, receiving my paycheck from the small bookstore in the neighborhood, I felt a sense of pride. I wasn't the Zoey I once was, the girl who only relied on others to survive. Now, I knew I could stand on my own. Moreover, those afternoons I worked, when I started making new friends, I began to feel like I was rebuilding my life from scratch. While not everything was easy, at least I knew I wasn't alone anymore. The Miller family was always there, supporting me through the tough times. And even without my biological parents, I didn't feel lacking in affection. As I started to see my future more clearly, the nights I spent doing homework and planning for exams, I no longer feared being left behind. I knew I could create my own future, even though the road ahead wouldn't be easy. The important thing was that I had the Miller family by my side, and that made me believe I could achieve whatever I set my mind to. Finally, after endless efforts, I received some unexpected good news. I had been awarded a full scholarship to a prestigious university in the city. When I read the notification, I could hardly believe my eyes. This wasn't just the result of countless late nights studying, but also a long journey filled with hardships that I had overcome. I had been given an opportunity I'd never even dared to dream of before. On my first day at school, I felt a bit lost and anxious. Everything was new: professors, classmates, the way of learning, the living environment. But one thing I knew for sure was that I was no longer Zoey of the past, the girl who was always left behind, always feeling undeserving of anything. Now, I was a hopeful student, and I was confident that I would build my own future. With the full scholarship, I didn't have to worry about tuition fees, but college life was still not easy. I needed to work part-time to cover living expenses and start building financial independence. One day, after arriving at school, I decided to look for a part-time job. Not because I was lacking anything, but because I wanted to support myself, to prove that I could do it on my own. So, I started working at a small coffee shop near campus. The first few days were tough, but I learned a lot. Besides making coffee, I learned how to communicate with customers, manage my time, and handle emergencies. The job wasn't easy, but I enjoyed the feeling of independence and being able to earn money through my own hard work. During my first year, I joined several school clubs to make friends and develop soft skills. One of the clubs I joined was the debate club, where I could showcase my reasoning and persuasion skills. At first, I joined as a newbie, not daring to speak much. But gradually, I started feeling more confident in each debate. I realized that when facing challenges, I no longer backed down like I used to. To earn extra income, I also began tutoring a few local high school students. At first, I only tutored basic subjects, but as I saw my teaching skills improve, I started expanding and helped students prepare for important exams. These tutoring sessions not only provided extra income, but also helped me develop communication skills, patience, and the ability to convey knowledge. Thanks to my hard work and perseverance, I began achieving certain successes in both my studies and work. My academic results improved, and I received praise from professors, and even started participating in research projects. The tutoring work also helped me build more relationships and made me feel truly valued. The busy days of working and studying taught me many lessons about independence and responsibility. I couldn't forget the late-night study sessions when it was just me and the light from my desk lamp. During those moments, I always felt exhausted, but also proud. Every time I received a high grade on a test, I reminded myself that I was getting closer to my goal. Then, I was chosen to participate in an academic exchange program with a university in Europe. This was an opportunity I never imagined, but now I realize that without putting in the effort, I would never know my own limits. With these initial accomplishments, I began to trust my abilities. I was no longer Zoe from the past, always hesitating, always afraid. I had learned how to stand firm, take control of my life, and not let the past blur the path ahead. Although many challenges still lay ahead, I knew that I would continue moving forward, not only for myself, but also for those who believed in me and helped me. Like the Miller family. The day I received my college diploma was a day I had been waiting for a long time. After years of hard work, I finally stood on that stage, holding my degree in my hands, not only as the result of my academic efforts, but also as proof to myself that I could do it, that I was no longer the child left behind. It was the proudest moment of my life, and I didn't want anything or anyone to ruin that special day. As I stood among the crowd of friends and family, my eyes suddenly caught an image that made my heart stop. It was my parents. They were standing there beside a group of people, and when my mom saw me, she waved and called out. Both Lucy and I were surprised to see them appear after so many years of absence. I felt a deep internal conflict. It wasn't because I still loved them, but because their appearance marked the return of a past I had worked so hard to move on from. My mom walked up to me, her face sporting a fake smile. "Zoe, you did so well. We're so proud of you," she said in a soft voice. But I could barely hear those words. "We've always thought about you, you know." My dad also came over, patting me on the shoulder as if I were the good child he had never forgotten. I stood still, unable to respond. All I could feel was anger rising inside me. "Why are you here?" I couldn't hold back my emotions. My voice was quiet but tense. They kept smiling, but I could feel the awkwardness in their eyes. "We just want to reconnect, Zoe. After all, it's your special day." My mom tried to prolong the conversation, as if nothing significant had happened between us in all these years. "My special day?" I raised an eyebrow, my voice cold. "You left me without an explanation, and now you come to me? I haven't considered you as my family for a long time now." I didn't want to make a scene, but I couldn't stand by and let them ruin my day. Lucy, who had been standing nearby, looked at me for a moment before stepping forward, her voice firm. "Mom, Dad, we can't keep living in this lie. Zoe is no longer a child. She's grown, and she doesn't need you. You didn't just abandon her, you deceived her." Lucy's words were a shock to both me and my parents. Mrs. Miller, who was standing nearby, had a worried look on her face but seemed to understand the situation. My parents just looked at each other, their calm demeanor breaking. My mom tried to speak, but couldn't find the words to justify herself. "Sweetheart, we've done everything for the family. We just made some wrong decisions." Lucy didn't let them finish. "Don't talk about financial reasons. I know the truth. Mom, Dad, you didn't just abandon Zoe for money. You deceived her. You're living a lavish life, traveling and enjoying things Zoe could never have, while she had to fend for herself." The truth hit like a slap, leaving my parents unable to deny it any longer. All the explanations, the reasons they had given for so long, now meant nothing. They hadn't just abandoned me. They had been living a life I wasn't even aware of, not due to lack of money, but because they had chosen a different path. There was nothing more to say. My dad lowered his head, silent. My mom didn't say anything either, just looked down at the floor as if she couldn't face the words Lucy had just said. None of us spoke anymore. But I knew things had changed. Forever. In that moment, I didn't feel angry anymore. I felt like a completely different person. Someone who had overcome the past. Someone who could stand up and speak the truth. No matter what my parents had to say, I had enough strength to no longer be affected by them. And on that day, I realized that family isn't about blood. It's about those who stand by you, protect you, and help you find yourself. Since that day, when I stepped out of the shadow of the past and found myself, my life had completely changed. I was no longer the scared girl, waiting for love and acceptance from those who had abandoned me. Instead, I became a confident, strong, and independent woman, knowing that I could build my own future without the help of those who didn't deserve it. With the experiences I had gone through, I began to feel the need to do something meaningful. Not just to help myself, but to help other young people facing difficulties like I had before. I decided to start a non-promise financial organization aimed at helping young people from struggling families learn personal financial management and build a solid financial foundation for the future. My organization wasn't just about teaching young people how to save, invest, or budget. It was also about helping them believe in themselves, knowing they could change their future. I held workshops, free classes, and invited financial experts to share their experiences. To my surprise, the number of young people joining kept growing, and I realized I was creating a small community where each person could share their story and learn from one another. Gradually, my organization became well-known and received support from influential people in the financial industry, and it grew stronger. Not only did it help financially, but I also created a space where participants could share their struggles, their challenges in life. From there, I realized that besides helping them master finance, I was also helping them find confidence in themselves. Every weekend, the Miller family would gather with me and close friends. We would sit together, talk about what we had accomplished, future plans, and the simple joys like cooking together. Those moments became precious in my life, when I truly felt like I had a place to belong. No longer feeling lonely or lacking, I felt free and happy because I had found my own path, a path I had drawn and followed. From a girl who had always suffered from abandonment, now I was someone who could create change, not just for myself, but for others as well. Today, when I look back at what I've accomplished, I don't feel proud of my achievements alone. What I'm most proud of is that I didn't let the past defeat me. I learned how to stand up, build my life, and more importantly, I learned how to love and accept myself. I don't know what the future will bring, but one thing I know for sure is that I will continue living this life with those who truly care and love me. And no matter what challenges lie ahead, I'll never have to face them alone. Because I've built a new family, and that's the family I need. One morning, while I was sitting in the office of the financial organization I founded, my phone suddenly buzzed. On the screen was my mom's name. I don't remember the last time I spoke with her, but her presence in my life no longer mattered as much as before. Still, I felt a small sense of anxiety. Logic told me not to listen, but my hands automatically reached for the phone. My mom's voice came through the phone, as if she were still the kind and loving mother I once knew, despite the many unhealed wounds between us. "Zoey, are you okay? Your dad and I are so proud of you. We've been watching you from afar and we see that you've accomplished so many wonderful things." Her words sounded sweet, but I knew nothing had really changed in them. "I'm fine, Mom." My voice was cold, though I couldn't deny the confusion rising inside me. "Thanks for keeping track." I didn't want to continue the conversation, but my mom kept speaking, her voice now tinged with hesitation. "Zoey, actually, we've been going through a huge struggle. We're in a very bad financial situation. Your dad and I thought maybe you could help us out a bit. Maybe help us pay off some of our debts, if you can." Her words were like a shock, a blow to my emotions. She not only called after so many years of silence, but also asked for my help. Help from the people who abandoned me when I needed them the most. I paused for a moment, trying to control my emotions. Mom, I can't help you and Dad. I've made it clear to everyone that I won't stay in contact anymore. I can't live in that fake relationship. Why don't you stand up for yourselves like you and Dad chose for us in the past? I said it, feeling like I had finally said everything that had been building up in me for years. At that moment, I didn't need to say anything else. I had made the decision to cut ties with them, not just because they left me, but because I didn't want them to continue using my pity to escape the consequences they had created. After that call, I received an email from my dad. Both of them sent the same apology, but this time not for abandoning me, but because of the financial situation they were facing. The whole email was about asking for money and hoping I could help them once again. The sweet words couldn't hide the truth that they only saw me as a tool to solve their problems. I didn't need to think long. I deleted both the email and their phone numbers from my contact list. I didn't want to carry those painful memories anymore. Love isn't something I can get back from them when they only returned for their own benefit. Forgiveness is not about conceding in every situation, especially when people don't change. Now, I understand that family isn't just about blood. Family is those who stand by you during tough times, those who believe in you and help you overcome challenges, not because they have to, but because they want to. My family now is the Miller family, the close friends who have been with me from the very beginning. They are the ones who always encourage me to move forward, not drag me back. Even though choosing not to respond to my parents' email or refuse their request for help might cause me to be criticized by others, I don't regret it. I've lived a life of freedom, not bound by those painful relationships. I've learned to love myself and build a life worthy of the efforts I've made. I look at the future without fear. My efforts are not just to help myself, but also to create an environment for young people like me, helping them gain confidence in their financial abilities and live a life not dependent on anyone else. Everything that happens has a reason, and now I know. I can stand on my own without any help from the people who never stood by me. Zoey has transformed from an abandoned, emotionally deprived girl into a strong, independent, and confident woman. Her life is no longer influenced by those who abandon her, but by those who truly care and love her. With a financial organization helping young people, Zoey not only built a solid career but also created a community where people help each other rise. She has learned that family isn't just about blood. It's about those who stand by you in times of difficulty. What do you think of Zoey's journey of determination and transformation? What would you do if you were in her shoes? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss more touching and meaningful stories about family life in future videos.